In a world where progress hinges on courage and resilience, women have risen to the occasion, defying norms and expectations and leading with fearlessness.
Fearless leadership transcends challenges and embraces uncertainty. It's about women standing at the forefront, unflinching in the face of adversity, and forging new paths where none existed before.
In this episode of sTUdio, we will uncover the unique qualities and strategies that define fearless leadership with women at TaskUs, and how these qualities have propelled each of us forward in progress. Welcome and good day, ladies.
Hello.
Hi. Before we get started, I thought we would do just some quick introductions, and then also saying maybe someone who you look up to, who you think is a fearless leader.
I have the privilege, I would say, of overseeing the Global People Operations team. To your next question, Brandy, who do I look up to? I don't have to look very far. I think I've always been very privileged to work with fearless, powerful, really capable women. This room alone will attest to that, right? So in my career, I've had, the good fortune of being mentored by women who put up huge organizations, also women who really would epitomize motherhood, balancing, raising their children, supporting their families, and also building careers and enabling others to grow their own.
I'm so glad to be here with this amazing group of women. So I'm part of the legal team and for the company globally. I think growing up, I've always been, like Marivi said, lucky and privileged to have women around me that have set really great standards for me. Starting as a young girl, having my mom, who was an Indian woman who got married when she was 19, and her and my dad immigrated to the US, and it was a whole new country, a whole new culture, having to learn how to do everything over again. She had 4 kids. Just seeing the patience that she had, like raising all of us, was something that I think is just such an important quality to have. As a fearless leader. The law profession is very male dominated. Men had always set the rules. They had always set the standards. And so seeing women come in and break that mold and have their own, spin on things in the way that, maybe we should be practicing in a different way, or maybe we should be doing this in a different way. Seeing that I thought was really powerful for me too.
Someone that I look up to as a fearless leader, I think in different phases of life you come across women who inspire you in some or other way, right? There's so many, and they're doing so well. When they can, why can't you, kind of, right? Stepping into roles ahead, when I look at my team, one of the things, especially being in India and being a woman leader in itself is a very different thing. The industry in itself is male dominated because women have not been that open to step out, decide on their career choices, and then take up those choices. Usually would give up on their career the moment they enter motherhood, right? That's been the trend, kind of. And those are some sensitive stages. They really need someone to help them into that conversation and help them pass that phase. Last sTUdio that I was able to do with some of the fearless leaders from my team, one of the ops managers, Rima, that I came across, and she shared her story. Being a single mom, she has been rising from a frontline to an ops manager level, and then the way she manages her personal life and professional life inspired me so much. So I think there are stories and bits and pieces that you pick up. I don't think it's unfair to just look up to just one person when there's so many around you.
Yes. And I like what you said, Sapna, about not putting women in a like a certain role of just like being mothers or in fact, I think one thing I really admire about you is that you've built your career while you're being a super mom at the same time. I don't know if a lot of you know, but
My children should say that.
No, they told me to say that.
We're balancing so much stuff, but what is so important on one day might not be the same the next day, right? Because it can't be. Sometimes it's going to be being a mom, sometimes it's going to be being a good friend, sometimes it's being a good, teammate. It has to balance every single day. It's hard to feel like this should all be personified by one person, because I feel like whenever you feel like that, it's this impossible standard that's going to always be so hard to meet. And once you realize that there's this mosaic of qualities, that so many different people possess, and you should be able to pick this up from this person and this up from that person, it makes it so easy for you to create your own style, because you can realize you just forge your own path.
Yeah. It reminds me of my favorite quote, and I have a sign in my office that says, "Well-behaved women rarely make history." And so I think about that all the time too, because we just have to break the mold, right? We can't always follow the rules of the norm. We have to step out and do something different in order to grow our careers or push ourselves forward for whatever we want in life.
I think we all can relate to that as women. I certainly, as myself as a woman in leadership, who's strived for leadership positions throughout my career, have hit a lot of challenges and walls depending on the setting that I'm in. I remember a time when I was working at a university and I was a director, and I remember presenting in a boardroom to a group of predominantly men in the university. And after I was done, I was really proud of myself for getting through the presentation. And one of the men in the room said, "Wow, you're a real firecracker." And I was mortified. I think he thought he was giving me a compliment, but it had nothing to do with the substance of what I was bringing into the room, and more about my persona and personality in a way that felt a little patronizing, if I can say. And so I think, we probably all have very similar stories to tell. So I'd like to ask each of you to think a little bit about how you might describe your leadership style and what fearless leadership means to you.
For me, fearless leadership is about looking at threats or dangers as opportunities. When I look at my career growth, and even my personal growth for that matter, it has always been driven by having that courage to jump into the unknown, taking on responsibilities and assignments that most people didn't want. But it has paid off. It doesn't mean that the path has been easy or I have not failed so many times. But I have taken failure as a way of learning. And I think fear of failure is one of the biggest things that stop us women, because we always want to put everyone ahead of us, and if we fail, it's like we're failing everyone else, right? But we also have to remember that when we succeed, when we're successful and we're growing, that also means bringing everyone else that we're thinking of into that growth space.
I love that, the fear and potential for failure kind of go hand in hand to propel you to the next level of where you want to be as a leader. So thanks for sharing. What about you, Vanessa?
What I'll add to that is one thing that I've always tried to, what leaders have pushed me to do, and now what I try to help my team do, is give them a lot of room to grow. Literally from the first day that I started practicing as a lawyer, I was pushed into going and taking this case to trial, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had just been I just got my license a month before that, and I was I don't know how to do a trial. Why are you trusting me with this? And a senior shareholder was like, "No, go for it. You'll be fine. You'll be fine." And I freaked out a lot. But I did it, and it really helped me, and I learned so much from it. And every time when you're in the weeds in one of those situations, I think it's natural to have a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear and all of that. And then in that moment, you're like, could I just quit? Could I just, what if I just don't show up? And what if I just, this is not the profession for me. But when you get through it, all of a sudden, you're on the other side. You can look back and you see how much you grew. And I think it's easy sometimes, especially as a mom. I feel like I get maternal too with your team, and you try to. There's a balancing act there where you're trying to help them learn from your experiences and maybe some of your failures, but then you do it in a way where they're actually learning that, and they're not becoming so overly reliant on you where you're impeding their growth. And so I try to give everybody on my team some room to grow, and sometimes they might fail a little bit and I might see it coming, but I think it's important that I'm not going to let them free fall, and it's not going to be some huge disaster or anything like that. But there are times where they have to have some of those road bumps in order to grow professionally.
I think it's really good that you've kind of taken from your leaders previously and are doing that in your own leadership style to allow safety for failure, right? Oftentimes leaders don't create a safe place for someone to fail, to understand that it's going to propel them to the next level. So I think that's really amazing to provide to your team. Samna, what about you?
I think for me, fearless leadership is any time you're put into a situation, you got to take a decision, right? And I think that's where I think fear, you call it fear, or you talk about doubts that would come in. I go for it, I don't go for it, or what do I do? I think one question that and with time I learned asking myself is, what is the worst case that would happen, right? What is the worst? And then are you ready to take those risks? One, someone got to have your back. And the second is, what is the cost of that failure that you're going to pay, right? And then take a decision based on it. And I think eventually you make mistakes. Everyone said, right? We all learn from our failures. Learning from it, get up and move up again. And then I think your entire team, your entire surroundings draw a lot of inspiration from those failures as well.
I think one of the things that I've learned is to be a collector of people that fill the gaps that I have too. And I think there's a lot of leaders that are afraid to maybe hire someone on their team that may know something more than them because they want to be the expert and they want to have the final word. And I just don't have that fear. So I really just try to hire people that can fill the gaps of the weaknesses I have. And to me, that's fearless, because at any time, maybe they could go above me or rise above me. But I think that we're better as a team because we play off of each other's strengths and weaknesses.
I agree. I say that all the time. I always want to hire someone smarter than me.
It really makes life easier.
So much easier. Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining today. I think this was a very inspirational conversation, and I really just enjoyed getting to know you all better and understanding your fears and how you are fearless leaders yourselves as women, and how we also represent multiple different geographies across the globe.
Yes, very inspirational. I think our audience has probably learned a lot from each of your own lived experiences.
This has been Brandy Zimmerman
And Rachel Guevara, thank you for joining us for this insightful conversation.
We'll see you again on the next episode of sTUdio.